Before we throw the floor open for an open question answer session, I would like to give my comments on the sequel to masturbation. It is not haram or sinful, but it is makrooh or discouraged in Islam. There's a question asked to me on WhatsApp on the 7th of November, and I gave the reply to this question in the program Ask Dr. Zakir Naik, Season 4, Session 3. And Alhamdulillah, we normally cut the full session into separate answers so that it is viewed by more number of people and released over the weekend. Sometimes it takes longer depending upon the editing. And this answer to masturbation was released on my YouTube channel on the 23rd of November. And Alhamdulillah, within 24 hours, in less than 24 hours, Alhamdulillah, more than 100,000 people viewed it. And on the 27th day, Alhamdulillah, it was viewed by more than 1 million people. This answer was translated into many languages, into Urdu, into Arabic, into Indonesia, and it reached millions of people more. And today morning, it was the 56th day, and Alhamdulillah, there were more than 1.23 million views for this answer. There was a lot of viral messages regarding this answer, but before I dwell into that, let me make it very clear to all of you, which I've said that earlier also, that I don't consider myself to be a scholar. I consider myself to be a talib-e-ilm, a student of knowledge. I'm a da'i and a student of knowledge. And the role of a da'i is to collect the fatwas given by scholars and convey it to the public, to the masses. And if there's a difference of opinion, he being a student of knowledge can choose between the fatwas given and give his opinion which he considers to be right. I don't consider myself to be a scholar. I've never given any fatwa. Yes, I may agree with certain scholars, but I myself don't consider myself to be a scholar, and I don't think that a person who's just passed from an Islamic university with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a PhD is called a scholar. For me, a scholar is of a different level who Allah has given the niyama. I'm not one of them. Because in my organization, a few years back when I was in Bombay, Alhamdulillah, as you know, that there were more than 500 full-time paid employees in my organization, out of which there were more than 60 full-time paid employees who were bachelors, masters, and PhD from Islamic universities all over the world. More than 40 were from India, from different madrasas, universities of India, and more than 20 were graduates, postgraduates, and doctorates from foreign universities. More than 15 were from the Islamic University of Medina. A few were, mashallah, PhDs. A few were masters, and the remaining, they were bachelors. In the subject of hadith majority, some were in tafsir, some were in sharia, in fiqh, some in dawah, some in lugha, and a variety. And there were few others, full-time staff, who were graduates from the famous university, Jamiat al-Imam, Muhammad bin Saud University. Some were from Al-Azhar University, some were bachelors, some were PhD from Al-Azhar University. So in short, we had more than 60 of our staff, full-time staff, out of the 500 who were bachelors, masters, and PhDs from different universities all over the world. But I do not consider any one of them to be scholars. For me, a scholar is something which is on a higher level, and most of the du'as that you find that giving lectures, most of them, I consider them to be students of knowledge. Even on the Peace TV, all more than 75 speakers that come on Peace TV English, as well as another, or on the other channels, I consider almost all of them to be students of knowledge. So that is the reason I don't consider myself to be a scholar, but the role of a da'i is to make the fatwas of the scholars common and palatable and digestible to the world. So I consider myself to be da'i. So let me make it very clear. I don't give fatwas on my own, but yes, I do research and I analyze the various fatwas given based on the verse of the Quran. And Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Nisa, chapter number 4, verse number 159, Atiullah, Atiur Rasul. Obey Allah and obey the Messenger. And those who have been charged with knowledge. That means the scholars. But the world doesn't stop there, it continues. But if the scholars differ, go back to Allah and His Rasul. So when the scholars differ, those people with student of knowledge or the other scholars can choose between the fatwas. If they have the basic knowledge of usul al-fiqh, etc., they have a right to choose. And I believe I'm a student of knowledge. And in this answer of whether masturbation is permissible or not, the first question asked to me on the 7th of November was by a person. The first question asked to me by a Muslim saying that he has left his home for green pastures and is away for home for more than 1.5 years, and he speaks to his wife, and many a time he speaks on the video call and he ends up masturbating. Is this permissible? And the second question by another Muslim who said that, there are times that he masturbates and he asks for forgiveness. Again he masturbates. Is it a sin to masturbate? And based on this, I gave the reply. And I said very clearly that as far as whether masturbation is permissible in Islam, there are differences of opinion in the group of scholars. But the majority of the scholars, they say it's haram. The majority of the scholars, I said, they say it is haram, and I'm very clear with it. But there was a minority of scholars, some who said it is makrooh, some said it is mubah, and I made it very clear that though the minority of the scholars say it is mubah or makrooh, this minority is not 1 or 2, it is a large number. But though they are in minority. And I agreed and I gave the scholars the names of top scholars who said, and I gave the names of top scholars who say it is haram. And I even gave the name of the minority who said it was makrooh or said it is mubah. And I agreed with the group of scholars who said it is makrooh. Based on this, there was a lot of response, a lot of viral messages regarding my answer. And that's the reason in the beginning of the answer I said that this question I was avoiding for a long time. But this is one of the most common questions asked by the Muslims. And according to one of my close friend, who's also a student of knowledge, he said that on Islam Q&A, which is one of the most popular websites for asking fatwas, more than 1 million people asked this question, is masturbation permissible or not? And this question has been asked to me hundreds of times and I kept on avoiding it. Then I decided, okay, I should give the reply. And I finally gave the reply. And there were a lot of reaction. Many people appreciated the answer. They thanked me. Some of them changed their views. But there were many who even disagreed with the answer. And this is bound to happen. When there's difference of opinion, there's bound to be disagreement. And I did not count, but I know there were many videos that were released in this last 1 month regarding my answer. I'm not going to talk about those which appreciated my answer, but I'm sure there may be more than 50 to 100 videos that have been released in English, in Urdu and other languages who disagreed with me, and they gave the reply trying to counter my answer. I did not watch all of them, but I did watch about 7 or 8. And alhamdulillah, there were people who replied. I'm only going to talk about those people who disagreed with me. And alhamdulillah, there were people who replied from Saudi Arabia, many from India, many from Pakistan, from UK, from USA, from the world over. And alhamdulillah, many of them were very close to me. They know me very well. But all of those who replied, they were students of knowledge. Some of them may be more knowledgeable than me, Allahu Alam. Some of them may be less knowledgeable than me, Allahu Alam. I'm not disputing, but all of them I consider who gave the reply were students of knowledge. And the 7 or 8 who I thought were important and I heard, some were for a few minutes, some were for 20 minutes, some were for half an hour, some were even for more than 1 hour. To listen to these 7 or 8 videos took me a few hours. It's not possible for me to listen to all the views, but I selected, and alhamdulillah, I was happy that all the 7 or 8 videos that I saw, all of them were very respectful, alhamdulillah. All of them, they did du'as for me, and I would like to say Jazakallah for that. All of them, they praised me, which I don't think so I deserve those praises. All praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And all of them, they were respectful, for which I'm thankful for them. And I would like to wish the same to them. I would like to take their names. But alhamdulillah, all of these people I'm talking about, they disagreed with my answer, and they belong to those they agreed with those group of scholars who said that masturbation is haram. There is no problem at all. We don't all have to agree. We have to sometimes agree to disagree. As far as these answers that I heard, about 8, 7 of them, they gave their view, I gave my view, I've got no problem with them at all. We disagree, and we agree to disagree. Khalas, that is how the students of knowledge they discuss, and that is the end of it. But 2 of those answers, amongst these people who respected me, I would like to give a reply. Amongst all the 8 answers that I heard, more than 1 hour somewhere, I did not find anything new which I did not answer in my main answer. I'm not going to repeat my answer because my answer was for about 24 minutes and we have less time. And even now this video, I don't know how long will this answer be. So I'm not going to repeat that. I would request those people that they hear my full answer on the topic. Masturbation is not haram or sinful, but it is makrooh or discouraged before they hear this answer of me. I'm going to speak something else besides that. The point to be noted is that most of the arguments they gave, I've already replied, so I don't have to repeat that, except 2 of them. One person, he said, I'll reply to him first. He said that there is ijma amongst all the scholars of Islam that masturbation is haram. He said, and because the person spoke in Urdu, he was from Pakistan, ekad hoinga, 1 here or there may be, who may not have said it's haram. In my answer, I gave name of 8 scholars, and they were not normal people. They were Sahabas, they were Tabain, Ibn Hazm, Shawkani, great names. How can you say 1 or that means surely his research on masturbation is weak. So to say that only 1 person may be said, when I gave the names of 8 and now I'm going to give more names to prove my point. That doesn't mean I'm right. It means that I have a right of my opinion to agree with those group of scholars who you may not agree with. For the reasons Allah says, Allah doesn't say believe in the majority. Allah says if the scholars differ, if the people of authority differ, Allah doesn't say believe in the majority. Allah says go back to Allah and His Rasul. Never in my life have I given any fatwa which no scholar has given before. And if there's something new, I always go back to the scholars, I check up my answers, etc. But always when it comes to issue of fiqh, and it may not be that one layman or an unknown scholar said something. I give names of scholars which are established, which are authentic, and the world respects. And I give those names. So for a person or student of knowledge who is disagreeing with me, no problem. But to say that ekad, 1 here or there may have said, is absolutely wrong. And the same person went on to say that Dr. Zakir Naik is saying that it is makrooh and if it is done without involving things which are haram. And he says it is impossible. It is impossible to masturbate without doing any haram. Again, he's not a medical doctor, I'm a medical doctor. I can give various examples where you can masturbate without doing haram activity. And I said in my lecture that majority of the time people masturbate involving haram things like watching pornography, watching blue film, and I disagree with that. But to say it is not possible at all, the questioner himself who posed the question, that he left his family for more than 1.5 years for green pastures to earn a living. He speaks with his wife on a video call. What is the context of the question? That means a man who is a good Muslim, he's speaking to his wife, and because the wife is away, he hasn't met her for more than 1.5 years. He doesn't want to get involved in anything haram. He does a video call with the wife, and during the video call, he masturbates. What is haram in that? Whether masturbation haram or not is secondary. Is he involving anything haram? No. So how can you say it is not possible at all? I don't want to give more examples. I'm a medical doctor. There are many ways you can masturbate without involving anything haram. But I do agree, most of the time, maybe more than 75% time, more than 80% time, more than 90% time, a person may be involving in haram things. But if a husband who doesn't have his wife, if he thinks about his wife and masturbates, what is haram in thinking about the wife? So I disagree with this person who is a student of knowledge to say that what Dr. Zakir Naik is saying is hypothetical. It's not possible at all. So these 2 points, what he said, is totally illogical. And I come to the list of scholars, a bigger list of scholars who say it is makrooh or mubah. The other student of knowledge, anyway, these people I don't know personally. The second student of knowledge, I heard him for the first time, and he gave reference to many books, and he quoted one more evidence to prove it is haram. In the talk, I had said that the scholars who say it is haram, they give only one evidence, that is Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 5 to 7, where it says that those who guard, the believers are those who guard their private parts, except from their wives and from what their right hand possesses. These are exceptions. Anyone who goes beyond the limits after this are transgressors. Now this verse of the Quran, according to the majority of the Mufassirin, it includes that masturbation is haram. And I said in my answer that one of the first of the great scholars of Aimma, Imam Shafi, may Allah have mercy on him, he said that this verse includes masturbation, and that was his view, and I respect his view. So among the tafasir, there are many which say this includes masturbation, but there are some who are silent, and there are some who disagree. This person goes on to say that there is not a single tafsir which ever says that masturbation is not included, and I'll come to it later on. He goes on to give, and I said in my answer, that this verse of the Quran which says that believers are those who guard their private parts, means I agree with those group of scholars who say masturbation is mubah or makrooh, and they say guarding the private part means guarding from others. But the majority of the group says guarding from who? Guarding from everyone. If it means guarding from others, it means all type of sex that you do with others, whether intercourse, whether looking at them, anything, it becomes haram, but others. And those scholars who say it means only others and not oneself, they give the argument saying that when the Prophet was asked that, can you touch your private part? And the Prophet said, yes, you can. There are other hadiths in which the Prophet said, that is part of your body, you can touch, but touch with your left hand. So if guarding means guarding from your own self also, that means Nauz Billah, the beloved Prophet, is going against the verse of the Quran, Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 24, verse number 5 to 7. That's the reason the lesser group, the minority, they say this verse does not include one's own self, because the Prophet permitted to touch your private part. But yet the majority says it means guarding from everyone, including yourself. So my question is, when I asked that can you touch your private part? And the answer is yes. No one says you cannot touch. I said, can you look at your private part? And the answer is yes. Then I asked the question, can you touch the private part of anyone else besides your wife and what your right hand possesses? And the answer is no. Can you look at the private parts of anyone else besides your wife and which your right hand possesses? And the answer is no. So that is the reason I believe with those group of scholars who say that this verse mainly refers guarding your private part from others. It includes all illegal sexual act, sexual intercourse, except doing it with your wife and what your right hand possesses. And I've given my reasons. So I believe that those group of scholars, though they are in a minority, they are few in numbers, but there are in tens, not 1 or 2 here or there. And it makes more sense. This brother gives one more hadith, quoting a hadith from Mustadrak al-Hakim, hadith number 3484. And this hadith, according to Mustadrak al-Hakim, he says it is on the same level as the criteria laid down by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. And I agree. That means it is the third level. Sorry, it is the fourth level. If you have heard my classification of hadith, the first is muttafiq alayk, that is present in Bukhari and Muslim both. Second is Bukhari, third is Muslim. And fourth category is those hadiths which Bukhari and Muslim have not analyzed. Other scholars have analyzed on the same criteria, so it's a very high level, I agree with it. And then he quotes this hadith, that when a person asks Aisha radiallahu anha, that is muta with women permissible? So she replies, between you and me is the book of Allah. And she quotes Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 5 to 7, and says that mu'mins are those, believers are those who guard their private parts, except from their wife and from what their right hand possesses. And anyone who goes beyond this limit, they are transgressors. This verse in no way proves that masturbation is permitted, I'm sorry to say. This verse, this hadith, in fact, is more in my favor. Muta means what? Muta means temporary marriage with a woman, which is prohibited in Islam. So marrying with others, having sex with others, temporary marriage, it is wrong, and I agree with that. Again, what she is very clear in saying that if you want to have sex with others, no one except what Allah has said, your wife and what your right hand possesses. It is supporting more my view, not the view of those scholars who say that masturbation is haram. Because when you are going to do muta, you are not going to masturbate with that woman. You can. So I agree with those group of scholars who say that this guard your private parts means guarding from others, not guarding from your own self. When you guard from others. And you're permitted to look at your own private parts, you're permitted to touch your own private parts. So this person, this extra point which I got, I've refuted that. This person further went on to say, and he told that Dr. Zakir Naik, he respected me, he did du'as for me, Jazakallah, I thank you for that, I do du'as to you too. Then he said that the reference that Dr. Zakir Naik gave of Ibn Abbas, and took out a book, and he quoted Ibn Hazm. And he said, Ibn Hazm says that this is daif. And I checked up. And this brother is right. I would like to thank him for correcting me. But why did I not say it is daif? Because the same Ibn Abbas was quoted by Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah. And I'll come to that quotation. When he says that Ibn Abbas believed that it is permitted when necessity, he did not say it is daif. So when Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah quotes Ibn Abbas without saying it is daif, I take it for granted it's authentic. That's the reason I quoted. But now when you're quoting me another muhaddith in Ibn Hazm, who came 200 years after the death of Ibn Hazm, the difference between his death and Ibn Hazm, that is 260 years. Ibn Hazm came towards the end, 996 CE, and he died in 1000 264C or 63C. Exactly 200 years after that, Ibn Taymiyyah was born in 263-64C. And he died in 320 plus C. The difference is 200 years between the death and the birth, and overall difference is 260 years. And Ibn Hazm, he's a muhaddis. So when the student of knowledge, I don't even remember his name, when he said that, I checked up. I hadn't read this quotation of Ibn Hazm, that he said that Ibn Abbas is hadith, the saying of Ibn Abbas is weak. I checked up and he was right. I thank him. So inshallah in future, I will not say that Ibn Abbas said that marriage is better than masturbation, masturbation is better than fornication. I will not say it because Ibn Hazm says it is daif. I agree with it. But what was shocking to me, this brother who quoted Ibn Hazm, he put a full stop where there was no full stop. Why didn't he continue? And I'll continue. I normally never bring. Once in a blue moon you might have seen, maybe once or twice, I am reading from notes. And now I'm going to read what Ibn Hazm said. So that this brother, I'm sure he's aware of it. Not that he reads the first line and misses the second line. And I'm giving the quotation from Ibn Hazm in his Al-Muhalla 12/408. I'm giving the reference. 12/408. Ibn Hazm in his Al-Muhalla, he says that the chain of narrations quoting Ibn Abbas and Ibn Umar are considered to be of weak authenticity or of dubious authenticity. That's it. He put a full stop. There's no full stop here. It continues, but there's a comma. But the view that it is makrooh is authentically narrated about Ata, and the view that it is mubah is authentically narrated about Al-Hasan, Amr bin Dinar, Ziyad bin Abul Ala, and Mujahid. Now, in that same reference where Ibn Hazm says that Ibn Abbas and Ibn Umar, I didn't quote Ibn Umar because I knew it was daif. Is daif. He goes on to say, but others view that it is makrooh, is authentic, and he gives a list of scholars and tabain who say that it is mubah, not makrooh, mubah. And he goes on to say, it is authentically narrated that it is makrooh by Ata, and it is authentically narrated that it is mubah by Al-Hasan, Amr bin Dinar, Ziyad bin Abul Ala, and Mujahid. Furthermore, this narration is reported about these mentioned who, on the authority of those whom they lived with the senior tabain, who in turn almost quoted none but from the Sahaba. Now Ibn Hazm, who is a muhaddis and is known to be a very staunch and strict muhaddis, he says this view that it is mubah is quoted by tabain, by senior tabain, and these people almost always quoted Sahaba. That's the reason Ibn Hazm himself believed it is makrooh. And I quoted that. So I'd like to thank you for telling me that the narration of Ibn Abbas is daif, though Ibn Taymiyyah, Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah has quoted. Because of that I said it is sahih, but Ibn Hazm says it is daif. He is a muhaddis, and in hadith, of course, he is a higher level than Ibn Taymiyyah. I'd like to thank you, but I would like to correct you also, that please don't quote half. If you quote full, if you're quoting Ibn Hazm, and if you say that Ibn Abbas is daif, also quote that Ata, who said makrooh is sahih, and the other tabain, who said it is mubah is sahih, and Ibn Hazm said that these people almost always quoted from the Sahabas. That's the reason Ibn Hazm himself believed it was makrooh. So, I would like to thank you for correcting me. And one aspect out of the 8 names I gave, one is daif, so I removed that. But I will give you many other names, which amongst the scholars who said that it is mubah and who said it is makrooh. Before I come to that, this brother also said that Dr. Zakir, he respects Nasruddin Albani, he respects Ibn Taymiyyah, he respects Ibn Utaymi, and these people said haram. So why is he not agreeing with that? This is not an argument. Let me tell you, brother, yes, all these scholars I respect. I consider them to be the A-star scholars. But I'm not a muqallid of any scholar, whether it be Ibn Taymiyyah, whether it be Nasruddin Albani, whether it be Sheikh bin Baz, whether it be Sheikh Ibn Utaymi. Majority of the fatwa I agree. But out of 1,000 fatwas they give, I may disagree with few. I respect Ibn Taymiyyah, but there are a few fatwas I disagree with. And one of them is this. I respect Sheikh Ibn Utaymi. I believe in almost all their fatwas, but not 100%. It may be 99 point some percent. It may be 98%. Out of 1,000 fatwas they give, I may disagree with 5. I believe in Sheikh bin Baz, alhamdulillah. Out of 1,000 fatwas he has given, I may disagree in 10, 15, 20. Just because I respect them, that doesn't mean that I have to follow 100% what they say. If this is your argument, I would like to tell you, brother, that you also respect all these scholars. Do you know? All of these scholars, they said, these scholars, I'm talking about Sheikh Nasruddin Albani, Sheikh bin Baz, they said photograph is haram. Why do you take photographs? Sheikh Nasruddin Albani says that videography is haram, and all these so-called students of knowledge, I don't consider any to be scholars who spoke about me in the video. Most of them they respect. They respect Sheikh Nasruddin Albani. Sheikh Nasruddin Albani has clearly said that videography and photography both is haram. But that doesn't mean that if you respect Sheikh Nasruddin Albani, you have to believe in him 100%. You may believe in 99%, you may believe 98%. If this is the argument, then why do you take out photography? Why do you take out videography? Anyway, I don't want to go to the debating mode. I love you, brother. I like to thank you for correcting me, even if it is one thing you corrected. Jazakallah, may Allah reward you. But this is not an argument that because Dr. Zakir Naik respects someone, he has to follow 100%. If that is the argument, why do you take out photograph? Why do you take out videograph? I know Sheikh Utaymi has 2 fatwas, but his major fatwa is that it is permitted. But some of them, he did say it is not regarding photography. Let's not go into the detail. I've discussed that in detail, I think last week or before that. But my point to be said is that all those students of knowledge who spoke about me, most of them respect Sheikh Nasruddin Albani. Yet you take out videographs, yet you take out photographs. This is not a point of argument at all. Now coming to your question, what did Ibn Taymiyyah said? What I don't mind at all if someone gives the view. That's it. But if there is a difference of opinion, I feel it is important that a person should give both the views. And in my answer, if you listen, I gave both the views. I didn't hide. I did not name all the scholars who said it is haram, but the major scholars I did say. That Sheikh Nasruddin Albani says it is haram, Sheikh bin Baz says it is haram. I said Sheikh Ibn Utaymi said haram. I didn't go into details. Today I go into detail. What you quoted about Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Utaymi, you did not give the full quotation. I do agree they say haram, but they also say that there is difference of opinion. And they say, majority say it is haram, but some say it is halal. And they even agree that they have a right to say it is permitted, and I'll give the quotation. But these scholars say it is haram. I'm giving some more quotations with references of Tabain and scholars who said it is makrooh or permitted. Amir bin Dinar is narrated to have said, I do not see any problem in masturbation in Abdul Razak in his Musannaf, Hadith 13594. It's mentioned in Abdul Razak in his Musannaf in Hadith 13586 that Ibn Jurayj quoted Atta that he considered masturbation as makrooh. It's further mentioned in Abdul Razak in his Musannaf, Hadith 13593, that Mujahid is narrated to have said, the early generations used to command their youth to practice masturbation. I repeat, Mujahid is narrated to have said, the early generations used to command their youth to practice masturbation. Talking about the Salaf. I'm giving reference, Abdul Razak in his Musannaf, Hadith 13593. Now I'll come to what I was referring to. Scholars quoting narration of Ibn Abbas without saying it is unauthentic. And here you have the fatwa of Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah in his Az-Zuhud wal Ibadah on page number 15. He says, if restraining oneself from marrying slaves is better than marrying them, to masturbate then is more so. That means he disagrees with masturbation, especially when many scholars, most of whom emphatically forbid it. Besides, it is one of the opinions of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, may Allah have mercy on him, which was adopted by Ibn Aqil in Al-Mufradat. Although what is known widely about Ahmad is that it is haram, unless one fears unavoidable sin, that is fornication, sodomy, etc. That means he's giving, Ibn Taymiyyah agrees that there are two views of Ahmad. But he agrees more in the view of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who says it is haram. Then he says, masturbation is not permissible in the sight of most scholars in early and later generation. Who's saying this? Ibn Taymiyyah. Whether sin is feared or not. The reported statements of Ibn Abbas and what is narrated by Ahmad is only for who extremely feared sin, which is adultery and sodomy. Now, Ibn Taymiyyah says, he quotes Ibn Abbas. Now when he quotes Ibn Abbas, saying that what he meant was only those who feared sin, that means Ibn Taymiyyah is agreeing with the reference of Ibn Abbas. That's the reason I quoted. And Ibn Taymiyyah is saying about Ibn Abbas, I assume that will be authentic. But since you gave me the reference of Ibn Hazm, who's a muhaddith, I agree with you. Inshallah, in future, I will never say that Ibn Abbas has said it. It is a daif narration, I agree with you. But I'm giving you the reference where I took it from. So it is allowed for them in order to bridle their lust. However, doing so for mere gratification by remembering some images and fencing having sex with them is all haram. Neither Ahmad nor other adopted it. Ibn Taymiyyah in his Az-Zuhd wal Ibadah. I'll come to it where Ibn Taymiyyah quotes other scholars also. I'll give the fatwa of Ibn Taymiyyah. And I do agree with you. You said he is a faqih. And according to me, amongst the recent scholars in the last about 20-30 years, I do agree that Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on him, he was a great faqih. I respect him. I consider him a star. Alhamdulillah. But there are some fatwas I disagree, and one of them is this. What does Ibn Taymiyyah say in his Ash-Shara al-Mumti, 321/14? Now he says it's haram, but listen to his full fatwa. He says, as for consensus, there is no consensus. This is talking about masturbation. You never said this. Ibn Taymiyyah says, as for consensus, there is no consensus because there are scholars who permitted it, but the reference when there is conflict is to the book of God and the sunnah of the messenger. May God bless him and grant him peace. He further says, if someone were to say, was it not reported from the predecessors? Was it not reported from the Salafs? That they would ask their children to practice it when they travel during the raids, so as to be in no need for anything else. So we say yes. Who's saying this? Ibn Taymiyyah. And he continues, but this is based on necessity, not in the absolute sense, because as long as we have evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah or from correct consideration, the early generation could not do anything forbidden, but it is carried on in a permissible state. So Ibn Taymiyyah agrees there is a difference of opinion. All the people who gave their views, all the 8 people that I heard, all of them thought as though there is no difference of opinion. None of them said that yes, there is difference of opinion, but I agree with the majority, no problem. In my answer, I was very clear cut that there was difference of opinion. Majority said haram. I believe in the minority group of scholars. I gave the dalil, I gave the logic, and many people appreciated it. I'm not asking you to agree with what I say, but don't go to say that not a single person, maybe here or there, one person said it is permitted. No. And when you're quoting the scholars, give the full quotation. Don't give half. If you quote half and it means otherwise. So when this brother was talking to me, why doesn't Dr. Zakir Naik, he believes in Ibn Uthaymeen, he believes in Ibn Taymiyyah. This brother may not be aware that Ibn Uthaymeen also agrees that difference of opinion. Ibn Taymiyyah believes the difference of opinion. Let's read or hear what Ibn Taymiyyah says in his Al-Fatwa Al-Kubra 3/439. He says, Ibn Taymiyyah, as for masturbation by the hand, it is forbidden by the majority of the scholars. But it is the most correct of the two views of the school of Ahmad. That means Ahmad ibn Hanbal had one view that it is permitted. The other view there holds that it is makrooh, not haram. But most of them do not allow it whether there is a fear of falling into sin or not. However, a group of Sahaba and Tabain allowed for necessity, such as fearing committing adultery where there is no other means to avoid it except through masturbation, or such as when he fears if he does not do it, he will get some illness. This is the view of Ahmad and others. However, without necessity, I do not know of anyone who says it is permitted. Allah knows best. Furthermore, Ibn Taymiyyah says in his Muqtasar Al-Fatwa Al-Misriya, the Egyptian fatwa, page number 34. Masturbation is haram in the sight of majority of the scholars, and it is most prevalent views narrated about Ahmad. And others is that it is makrooh. But if he fears falling into adultery or getting ill, if he does not do it, there are two well-known views. A good number of earlier and later generations allowed it in this case. I'm quoting now Al-Mughni by Ibn Qudamah, 3/156. He says that, and whoever is permitted to break his fast due to the severity of his lust, if he is able to alleviate such desires without intercourse, such as masturbating with his hand or the hand of his wife or a slave girl, it is not permissible for him to have intercourse. Because he broke his fast due to necessity, so it is not permissible for him to exceed what can remove such pressing necessity. That means here Ibn Qudamah says that masturbation is not a form of sexual intercourse. Because when you are fasting and if you have a sexual intercourse with your wife or with your slave girl, it is the biggest sin while fasting. It breaks the fast, it's the biggest sin. There's kafara. You have to fast for 60 consecutive days without missing a single. If you miss one, again start from again. 60. If not, you have to free a slave. If not, you have to feed 60 people. But masturbation also breaks the fast. But it is not same as sexual intercourse. In that case, you have to compensate for the fast you have not kept, and you have to fast after Ramadan one fast which you missed. But you don't have to give the kafara of fasting 60 days or freeing a slave or feeding 60 people. The answer is long. I'll just cut it short. I don't want to speak for long. The person who said that there's the ijma of the scholars that masturbation is haram, and qad, one here or there may have said it. One here or there means, maybe someone who has no knowledge may have said it. I would like to point out to him. Now there are scholars who said masturbation is not haram. Al-Atrazi, he said not haram when relieving oneself from the stress of lust. Abu Bakr Al-Iskaf, not haram when avoiding doing sin. Ibn Abidin, not haram when relieving oneself from the stress of lust, but it is haram to stimulate oneself sexually in order to masturbate. Fourth, Ibn Al-Humam, not haram when relieving oneself from the stress of lust. Dr. Khalid Al-Musleh, he is a great Saudi Mufti, not haram when necessary to relieve oneself from the stress of lust. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, according to one of his narrative view, that is not haram. Now, there is another group of scholars who say it is makrooh, very clearly. Even the above groups permitted, but not placing whether it's makrooh or mubah. These group of scholars emphatically mention it is makrooh. One of them is Atah, other is Ibn Hazm, which I quoted. No evidence it is haram, although morally not appropriate. Ibn Aqil, better than marrying a slave woman. Jabir bin Zayd, student of Ibn Abbas, He said it is makrooh. Mardawi, makrooh, but can be mubah or mustahab if fear of fornication. Mardawi says it is makrooh, but if you fear fornication, it can be mubah, it can also be mustahab. There's another group of scholars who say it is mubah. Mubah means you can do it whenever you want, there is no sin at all, you don't require a reason for it. And that list is also quite big. It's not one or two. Mubah. One of them is Mujahid. He said it is mubah. Amir bin Dinar, it is mubah. Al-Ala bin Ziyad, he said it is mubah. Al-Hasan al-Basri, mubah. As-Sayyid as-Sabiq does not see any harm. And one of my major reason, dalil, why I said it is makrooh is the statements of Ash-Shawqani. Sheikh Muhammad bin Ali Abdullah Ash-Shawqani is a great scholar. And he lived in the 19th century, and I think he died in 1839, close to that, about 180 years ago. So he's a scholar about 2 centuries old, and he's famous. The question posed by this brother, the second brother, who said not a single tafsir said that masturbation is permitted, and we know that Sheikh Shawqani, may Allah have mercy on him, he wrote the Fathul al-Qadir, and I'm quoting. In his book, the Fath al-Qadir, he writes regarding this verse of the Quran of Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 5 and 7. And he says that while commenting, Ash-Shawqani, while commenting on the verse, Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23, verse 5 to 7, he says, what is prohibited is having sex with other than the two mentioned, your wife and the slave girl. Furthermore, he refers the reader to a book he himself authored specially for masturbation. He wrote a separate book only on masturbation, entitled Bulugh al-Muna fi Hukum al-Istimna. I repeat, he wrote a special book exclusively saying that masturbation is mubah. It is not haram, it is not makrooh. And the title of that book is Bulugh al-Muna fi Hukum al-Istimna, where he refutes that the verses having anything to do with banning masturbation, as the verses speak only about illegal sex, and masturbation is not a sexual intercourse with anyone. So to say that not a single tafsir, and Fath al-Qadir, mashallah, it's a very famous tafsir, it's a respected tafsir. I do agree that most of the tafsir are silent on this issue. There are many tafsir who say it is haram and masturbation is haram based on this verse. I didn't try and hide that. But to say that not a single tafsir says that masturbation is not included in this verse, this I'm quoting from Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Abdullah Ash-Shawqani. Now, coming to the last argument of mine. What you have to realize that normally, even I have this habit, when someone asks something which is makrooh, and I don't want to make it light, I give an answer without mentioning it is haram. But I want the person not to do it. And the best example is that someone asked me that, can I stand and drink water? I will say, don't stand and drink water. The Prophet said, you should not stand and drink water. Finish. You may conclude Dr. Zakir Naik said it is haram. I know very well. Standing and drinking water is not haram, it is makrooh. There are many hadiths in Bukhari and Muslim where the Prophet said, don't stand and drink water. But there's a hadith in Bukhari which is said by Ali radiallahu anh. He said that many people think that standing and drinking water is haram, but I've seen the Prophet drink the way I'm drinking and he shouldn't drink water. So based on this, standing and drinking is makrooh. But I will not go and tell him that, no, it is not haram, it is makrooh, so better you don't stand. I will tell him, don't stand and drink water. The Prophet said that. This is the way. Or I would say, it is better not to stand and drink water. So many of the scholars of the present time, when they ask this question, many a time they give this answer that better don't do masturbation. That doesn't mean that they think it is haram. And I've spoken to a few of them, I will not name them, because this is what they want. They don't want the world to come to know what is their view. And even I do the same. But to say amongst today no scholar, and I told you that today I feel the scholars are very few. In the full world, there may be a few hundred. Maximum maybe little less than 1,000, little more than 1,000. But students of knowledge, every year there are tens of thousands of students of knowledge passing. There are hundreds of thousands of students of knowledge throughout the world. But they are not scholars. So this is the way they say. And even I avoided answering this question. Why did I answer it now? I'll come to it later on. Regarding the question, that did any scholar today say it is mubah? Yes. I did not say all these things because I wanted to keep it in a subtle way giving the answer, so that I don't want people now, when I quote this scholar, he is not saying it is makrooh, he's saying it is mubah. And who is he? Sheikh Abdullah al-Mutlaq. Sheikh Abdullah al-Mutlaq, he is amongst the Kubar ulama of Saudi Arabia. You know, the 10 Kubar ulama, he's very famous. And I consider him to be a scholar. He's one of the few scholars who are living today. He was asked by a newspaper, and this was called newspaper, As-Sabaq. And then they even, if you go on the internet, you will find even his videos there. He's saying it. So there is no doubt about it. And I will give you the translation of what he said. When Sheikh Abdullah al-Mutlaq was asked about masturbation, he says, it is a disputable issue, and the majority of the scholars view it as haram. However, I am one of those who believe it is permissible. That means it is mubah. Due to today world's temptation. I am one of those who believe it is permissible due to today world's temptation. And one doing it is not transgressing. That means, according to Sheikh Abdullah al-Mutlaq, he says masturbation doesn't come in transgressing. That means it doesn't come in the verse of the Quran of Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 5, that guard your private parts, and verse number 5 and 6, except with your wife and what your right hand possesses, and all those who cross this limit, they're transgressing. Sheikh Abdullah Mutlaq, like Sheikh Shawkani, says it doesn't fall in this category. He is merely putting his hand to his private part. Who is saying this? Sheikh Abdullah Mutlaq. He is not transgressing. He is merely putting his hand to his private parts. Based on that, he may do it when he needs to do it, but to keep away from it is better. So Sheikh Abdullah al-Mutlaq, and I know him personally, he's a great scholar. And he is amongst the Kubar ulama. So if you want to call amongst the 10 top scholars of Saudi Arabia, I would say he's one of them. So what would you say? This person, would you say that Sheikh Abdullah Mutlaq has no right to speak about Islam? Will you say that Sheikh Shawkani, he should not speak? He goes on to say that Dr. Zakir Naik is expert in Islam and comparative religion, he should not talk on fiqh. If I tell to these speakers that don't talk on comparative religion, that's not mine. You have a right to speak on comparative religion. I don't consider myself even to be a scholar on comparative religion. I consider myself to be a student. Alhamdulillah, I know the usul of fiqh. I had staff, so many, mashallah, full time for years together. I've sat with scholars, I've studied with some. I'm not claiming to be a scholar at all, but I do consider myself to be a student of knowledge. I consider myself to be a da'i. I have a right to my opinion, because I know the usul of fiqh. Now what will you talk about these scholars? Would you lay the same allegation on them? Sheikh Shawkani, and none of these people are better than Sheikh Shawkani. Again, I would like to thank all the scholars who praised me, all the students of knowledge who praised me. I would like to thank them. And I have no problem. You have the view it is haram, alhamdulillah. I yet respect you. So I deserve the same thing If I differ, it is not I'm getting something out of the box. It is not something I'm saying something which no scholar has said before. So I would request you to do your research. I'm talking about these two people, the others, alhamdulillah. Do your research well. You may disagree with me. I have no problem. Majority may disagree. But don't say that I'm just getting out of the blue. Regarding the question, that if I did not speak for so many years, why did I give this answer? I'm a medical doctor. And what I've realized that while I was in the medical college, I had a lot of Muslim friends who are also doctors. And they used to always comment that how come our shuyukh say that masturbation, there's loss of memory, masturbation, there is blindness. And you go today on many of these websites of these shuyukhs, they are scholars. They say masturbation gets blindness, masturbation, loss of memory. Where do they get this from? So I, being a medical doctor, and there are necessities. Many a times there are many Muslims who are good pious and they come and tell me that, Brother Zakir, you know, masturbation, I'm feeling guilty, and then they cannot pray well, they cannot concentrate on their salah. So I tell them, brother, okay, it is makrooh. Try and avoid it. But if you have to do it, don't have so much guilt that you cannot pray. Don't have so much guilt that you cannot do ibadah. That was the only reason. Now let me tell you very clearly, there's something like fatwa and there's something like taqwa. And I always say that when there is difference of opinion between the scholars, take this example, masturbation. The majority of the scholars say that it is haram. Some say it is mubah. Some say it is makrooh. There are minority. What should you do? I said, when there is difference of opinion, follow the higher level. Because if you don't do it, no one will say it is haram not to do it, but natural. So I would say, generally, if there is difference of opinion, go to the higher level. Even if you agree with the scholars who say makrooh, that is your fatwa, taqwa would be, don't do it. And the best example is of Sheikh Nasiruddin Albani. Sheikh Nasiruddin Albani, he gives the fatwa that niqab is not fard. I know there's a great deal of scholars, and most of the scholars that we have today, whether it be Bin Baz, whether it be Shaykh Uthaymeen, Abdul ibn Jibreen, they say niqab is fard. Sheikh Nasiruddin Albani says it is not fard, it is mubah. Or it's mustahab, but it's not fard. That doesn't mean that they have to fight among themselves. But as far as his women folk were concerned, whether they were his wives and his daughters, they did niqab. That is his taqwa. So my request to the people is that it is best to avoid. Don't masturbate at all. When it goes to limits where it is unavoidable, etc., avoid doing it. Best is to fast. If while fasting also you cannot avoid it, as I gave him a full answer, as a last resort, try and do it as rarely as possible. And when you do it, don't involve at all in things which are haram. The reason I put in the makrooh category and not haram category is because I know that majority of the people who masturbate, they involve with watching blue films, watching pornography, whether it be films, whether it be images, I know. Not 100%, but majority. Whether you want to say more than 75%, whether we say more than 80%, whether more than 90%, but not all for sure. So that's the reason I would request that please, though my view is it is not haram, my view is it is makrooh, but if those who are not doing it, please continue with that. That is a high level. Those who cannot restrain, and there are various reasons, I don't want to go into the details, my answer has already gone wrong. I can speak for another few hours only on this topic because that's a medical topic. There are many people who after marriage, if they have a spouse, some men would like to have sex few times a week. Some of the wives can't have more than once. So if they do, I would say it is makrooh. Not that they have to go to pornographic site. They have a wife, they can think about their wife and masturbate. But if someone masturbates and robs the right of the spouse, whether it be man or woman, if a man masturbates and does not have sex with his wife, it is haram. Yes, if a husband is hypersexual, wants many times a week, and the wife can only do once a week, and then if he does, it will come in the makrooh category. On the other hand, there may be a wife who may be hypersexual, the husband only wants to do once a week, and she wants to do many times a week, and if she masturbates, no problem. Not that they have to go to pornographic site. The person can think about the spouse, whether it be a man or a woman. And according to statistics, 70% of the people who are married, they masturbate. I don't want to go more into details. This was supposed to be in brief. I've spoken for more than an hour, approximately an hour. So, and I can keep on speaking for hours. Please, I don't want all of you to agree what I believe in. I don't want at all. But please don't say that it is a view which is no one has ever said before or no scholar has said. Then I would say that your research is weak. I would like to thank all the people who have given their views and have praised me. I don't intend, if someone replies, I'm not going to reply again because this topic should be closed. I've already spoken for an hour. That time I spoke for 25 minutes. Now it is close to an hour. And this topic can go on and on. I have got many more evidences, etc., to prove my point of view. You may agree, you may disagree. You have to think that this is a difference of opinion. And you have to respect the difference of opinion. Not that you have to stick to one, because it has been said by scholars who are great scholars, like Ibn Hazm, like Sheikh Shawkani, Sheikh Abdullah al-Mutlaq, and many others. And I would like to thank all the brothers once again for doing du'as for me, and may Allah accept our effort, may Allah accept your effort. I love all the brothers who have spoken about me. I love them. Even if they have criticized me, I've got no problem at all. Most of them did du'as for me, or whatever that I heard. Alhamdulillah, may Allah raise all of us on the day of judgment. Our main aim is to spread the message, because Allah clearly says, don't make what is haram as halal, and don't make what is halal as haram. We fear that. We fear that. That is the only reason. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dealt with this topic. And I hope that the chapter closes here, doesn't get more and more viral. We have many other topics to discuss. Now we can throw the floor open and discuss the other issues, inshallah.